In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to administer the LICCA program with a patient. At this point, you should have already administered the DMAC to determine the patient plan. If you have not, please go watch my video on how to complete the DMAC. When we first enter the patient's home, the first thing we want to do is remove the biometric armband from their wrist and sync it with the app. This will provide us with all the biometric data for the patient. Once we have that, we want to open up Google Chrome. At the very top, in the address bar provided, right next to where the lock is, you're going to select there, and we want to type in regainmemory360.com. This website provides a ton of information regarding the program. You'll see two YouTube videos. There's one at the top, which is a general overview, and then the second video below it actually is Dr. Suresh Kumar, the neurologist who developed the program, giving an in-depth look at how the program was developed and the results of the program. So this website actually has a ton of information if you guys are ever looking for additional information on the program. Dr. Kumar recently partnered with the NFL Alumni Association, so all the retired NFL players are being offered this program since it does work on Alzheimer's, dementia, traumatic brain injury, and stroke patients, really anybody with cognitive deficits. You'll also see the Carpenter Health Network down at the bottom. But we're going to go to the very top of this page, and you'll see in the middle at the top in blue letters, it says Log in to Mobile LICCA. We want to select that. From here, mine are kind of jumbled up, but we want to click on Therapist Login. And in the top right corner, you'll see three little bubbles, three little dots. I'm going to select that. And then fourth from the bottom, you'll see Add to Home Screen. We want to click on that. And we want to click Add. And what this does is from our home screen here, it will add us a shortcut. So up in my top right corner, you can see where it says Brain Game. And actually, if you hold that down, you can move it to wherever you want it to be that you can remember. And that way, the next time we get ready to go see this patient or any patient, we just have to click on it and it'll take us directly to our login. Your login is going to be provided to you by your ED. So once we log in, you'll see this screen here where we can search for patients. So we're going to use the test patient. Every time you go in and see this patient, the biometrics will be taken, and you'll see at the bottom there's a list of the biometrics. I'm going to turn my screen sideways so you can see it a little bit better here. But if you'll see at the bottom right of my screen right now, there's a blue report button. If I click on that blue report button and go to intake report, which is the second one down, it pulls up the entire DMAC results for me. And if I keep going past the DMAC results, it'll say, based on the DMAC report, the following are the recommended exercises in LICCA. Now, these are the exercises you want to work on with this particular patient. And there's a bunch of categories here, a bunch of different games. Keep in mind you're going to be working with this patient for 4 months or longer, so you want to change it up. But this is the plan on what this particular patient needs to work on. That's where you want to click to begin the games with the patient. When you first log in to a patient, you're going to see a disclaimer and a user license agreement. Now they're not on this one because this is a test patient, but you'll simply click on those two, scroll to the bottom, enter the patient's name, and hit submit. The first time you see that patient will be the only time you see those. From here on out, this will be the screen that pulls up whenever you meet with a patient. Here it'll ask you to enter the patient's biometrics. their heart rate, blood pressure, respiratory, pulse ox, activity. A lot of this you can get off the armband. So you'll simply look at the information on the armband and enter it into LICCA. At the bottom, you'll hit submit. If we go back to the top, to find the games for the patient, if you'll look in the top left corner, there's 3 horizontal bars. We call it a cheeseburger. If you click on those 3 horizontal bars, it will pull up all the game categories. You'll notice that these are the same categories that we saw with the DMAC report. You'll always want to start with an immediate recall game. Every single patient needs to work on immediate recall first, because later they're going to attempt delayed recall, and that's something each of these patients struggles with. The reason you're going to want to always start with immediate recall is it's going to have a timer. It's the only game where you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can reattempt it. So you're always going to want to start with that immediate recall. So let's click on immediate recall. So we're going to go to the bird sound game first. But what I want you to look at here on this menu is you'll see some of the games have a Roman numeral 1, while other games have a Roman numeral 2. Level 1 games, or Roman numeral 1 games, are the easiest. Level 2, Roman numeral 2, get harder. And within each of these categories, there are different games, which I'll explain better in a minute. But for now, let's attempt the bird sound game. On this game, it's going to show a picture of a bird along with its sound, and the patient will have to recall which bird matches the sound. You'll notice in the top right corner there is a delayed recall box. And right now that delayed recall box has 0. Now if we go back to our cheeseburger in the top left corner and we can select home, now you'll see that delayed recall has a 1 next to it. If we click on that delayed recall box, that's the timer I was talking about. So that game we cannot attempt for another 10 minutes and 24 seconds. That's why we always want to start with our immediate recall game. Now from here, we can select any of the games that were in the plan that was provided by the DMAC. So one of the games for this particular patient that showed up was under the visual category. So if we go back to our cheeseburger and go to visual games, see, the memory card was one of them, and you'll notice if that's a Roman numeral 1, but if I select that game, you see there's an X in the top right corner. If I click that X and then click my cheeseburger again, now see there's 4 different games within that one category. This is how there's over 150 games within the program, and you'll see all 4 of these have a green out next to them. Well, green are the easiest, yellow is medium, and red is hard. So to give you another example of that, if we go back to the home, back to our cheeseburger, and go in visual, and we'll look at another category, such as visual processing. If we click the X, click our cheeseburger again, you'll see there's a yellow game within that one, and multiple games within that. So each of those categories with a Roman numeral has multiple games within it if you hit that cheeseburger again. And a lot of these games you'll come to know, and you'll know which ones will be good for which patients. So for example, an elderly gentleman may not want to go find a shopping list and go to the grocery store and pick out what he's supposed to have, but he may enjoy the steps of changing oil in a car. So you'll become familiar with these games. You'll also notice that there's a pill management game, and this is great to do with patients because it teaches patients when to take medication, which medications they're supposed to take, which we all know is a huge issue for elderly patients. Also, there's an ACT category. We'll click on that. So this is where you actually do activities with the patient, like a laundry log. So you have them sort out their laundry, their whites with their coloreds, and you'll actually put how many they got wrong. So this is something, an actual act you go do with the patient rather than just some of the other activities and games. Let's look at some of the other categories up here. There's also hand-brain exercises. So this is something where the patient physically participates as well. So here they'll position the finger of their right hand and left hand posture according to the picture within 10 seconds. An O formation with the thumb and index finger, right hand thumb, and ring finger of the left hand. And then you'll be asked to reverse. So for example, they'll have to do that for 10 seconds. And then you'll say, okay, did they perform it before that exercise went away or not? We'll say, yes, they performed it. Let's go to the next one. And here it'll give you the instructions. They have to do the same thing. So this is an actual hand exercise. And then let's go back to our categories. Let's look at attention games. Or I'm sorry, I clicked executive. Like signs and cues, for example. So there's 2 columns of landmarks and places that'll be displayed. We're going to tap or click on a landmark in the first column and then tap or click on the corresponding place in the second column. So for a man restroom, we have a unisex toilet with a wheelchair. For the lift with the wheelchair, and then a hospital clinic. Female toilet, wheelchair, the phone, food. So these are just some of the different games that we have here. And if I click up here on my cheeseburger, it'll always take me back to all the game categories. So for attention games, we have clock, and then you see that get progressively harder. This one has a whole lot of Roman numeral 2s within it. But if we click on the clock time, and I hit the X and go back to my cheeseburger, it'll have a couple different games within that category. Now, you're going to see a ton of patients. You're probably not going to remember what they scored when. So if you click on your cheeseburger, you'll see the very last category. Well, let's go home and then back to our cheeseburger. The very last category is score history. Now, anytime you click on score history, it's going to pull up what that patient scored on every single game they've ever attempted. It'll tell you the date and everything else. So if you'll see at the very top, visual working memory, the shopping list, that patient got 100 on that. The face memory game, they got 100 on that. These are in the visual category. If we go down, that's language. You'll see that synonyms match, they got 100. If they're getting 100 on that level, you want to advance them. So if that's a green level 1 game, you're going to want to do a yellow and then a red level 1 game, if there is one. And then bump them up to level 2. So this is how you can go in and see what that patient has worked on before for each category and what they've scored. So what you're going to do is always, like I said, start with an immediate recall game. After you finish your immediate recall game, you're going to spend 30 minutes doing any of the other games that were recommended. And you can change it up because you're going to be in there, like I said, for 4 months with this patient. So you're going to want to change those games up, and that's why there's so many of them. So after the 30 minutes has been completed, if you click up there where it says delayed recall again, where our timer was, we've still got 3 minutes and 22 seconds. But whenever that's done, that'll be the last game you attempt. So we'll wait and play a couple more games and let that run out. If you ever have a patient that is kind of getting frustrated or just kind of not in the mood to do this one day maybe, or whatever that may be, the best games to do with them at that point are either attention or disinhibition games, because those tend to be a little lighter and not so strenuous, like numerical games, for example. So let's see here, a disinhibition game. We'll do the shape one. So on this game, there's a red square and a triangle of flash. And you have to tap on the opposite one. So in other words, if you see a square, you tap triangle. If you see a triangle, you'll tap square. And you'll recognize this game. It was also on the DMAC. We got 100. So let's hit our delayed recall. We still have 1:48 left. And if you hit our cheeseburger, you can see there's more games within that category. So we did really well at the square and triangle. So since we got 100 on that one, next time let's go up to the hexagon versus pentagon one, instead of reattempting that square versus triangle game. So if we go, let's look at the pill management game. So here it'll give you a list of medications and when you take them. So we have a tab C that we take in the afternoon, a tab T4 we take at night, Z10 is at night, tab A and tab L we take in the morning. So here they'll simply drag them and place them wherever it is that they take them, whenever they take them. So we'll just pick some here. And they'll continue to go and tell you when they take that medication, what it is, how many milligrams. And this is, like I said, a great game to play with people who are in assisted living facilities. So exit out of that one there. Numerical games. So if we go to this here, combination of numbers will be displayed for 5 seconds. And then they'll have to select that exact number combination. And you'll recognize this game from the DMAC as well. And it's amazing to see how well these patients progress, because you'll see the first time they attempt this, maybe they'll only score a 10 or a 15. And after being on the program for a couple months, they're blowing these out of the water. You know, it's amazing to see these patients level up. Now, if you see up at the top our delayed recall, let's click on that again. And you'll see now that our timer's run out, our bird sound game is available. So if you just click where it says available, it'll take you back to that game to reattempt it. And this is going to be the last thing you do with the patient. So in all, you're going to spend about 30 minutes doing these games. Just remember, always start with immediate recall and always end with that delayed recall game. The rest of your time in the patient's home is going to be doing your normal stuff, taking blood pressure, plugging in the armband, syncing it. But you can also chart while the patient is doing some of these games. As you know, you're instructing them, giving them instructions, helping them through it. It will take you longer your first couple of times out, but you'll have it down in no time.